let's get to it. Let's get to it. So, Russell Wilson, and we talked about this in a lot of different facets, a lot of different spaces. In the past, I guess you can say 4 to 5 months. Honestly, we talked about this towards the end of the season when the whole benching thing came up. But here we are now at this moment in time that the Broncos have pulled the trigger.
Yep.
They have released Russell Wilson from his contract. Now, mind you, this is a contract that technically hadn't started yet.
Right.
So they gave him a $272 million deal over 5 years that wasn't going to kick in until this league year. He spent 2 years with the organization, one with Nathaniel Hackett, who was fired towards the end of the season. He didn't make it through a full season, and he spent a season with Sean Payton. So they're going back and forth. I mean, from top to bottom, I mean, Sean Payton seemed as if he was going to be a very, I guess you can say, complimentary and supportive of Russell, and trying to make who they paid to be their franchise quarterback work and make them, into a contending team with him being at the helm. But how quickly that took a turn.
Yeah.
Which, gives me pause, because if I'm the Denver Nuggets, I'm saying Denver Nuggets. If I'm the Denver Broncos, we just got to talk about the Nuggets. If I'm the Denver Broncos, and I knew going into the situation that I was looking for a new coach,
yep,
I would have to have 100% certainty that coach was completely and totally on board with the idea of making him work, because I owe him too much money, if nothing else, to make a different go a different route. Let's put it that way. So again, we talked about the fact that he was on his new deal that didn't kick in until this year.
Okay.
So when they got into the meeting with Sean Payton and whatever Sean Payton told them, I guess he made them understand that he was going to, air quote, make Russell Wilson work, or revitalize his Hall of Fame track in his career, right, at him being 34, 35 years old. But it seems to me, and you tell me if you feel anything different, it seems to me that Sean Payton never had the inclination that he wanted Russell Wilson to be his quarterback.
Hell to no, he didn't.
Okay, so I'm at least you share that sentiment with me like I do.
Yes.
So what bothers me about this whole situation is that you basically said what you had to say, to work your way in, only to convince the organization to move off of him before the contract starts, and take a record number of dead money in the realm of $86 million in dead money on your books to have to pay for a guy that's never going to play for you under his new contract. Tell me where that makes sense. So between what you gave up to get Russell, the draft capital you sent Seattle, the players you sent to Seattle, and vice versa, and the level of money that you committed to him, which was about $124 million fully guaranteed out of the 272, you basically should have, I guess you can say, chose Russell over the coach.
Yep.
Because again, if Sean Payton told you what he wanted to tell you in regards to him saying he's going to make Russell work, but he had no intentions of, the moment you realized that he definitely was going to be on the other end of wanting a different quarterback, you should have reassessed who your coach was, because it was way less punitive to get rid of a coach than it is a quarterback with this type of level of money he was guaranteed. So I say all that to say, the level of, I guess you can say, shadiness and dirty pool that Denver has played over the last 2 years, it's definitely a red flag.
Yep.
It's definitely a red flag. And the level of exploitation that's happened when it comes down to Russell Wilson and his them damaging his air quote image is something that we need to address and for my money. But tell me what your initial reaction to this particular happenings are, and then we'll dig deeper into the ramifications of what this means for the Broncos.
This was, being frank, this was absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And listen, let me stay focused. One, this is absolutely disgusting. Two, this is not how you treat people at the core.
Agreed.
Right? You can listen, you don't have to like it. You don't have to enjoy it. You can have a difference of opinion, but at the end of the day, this is not how you treat people. Number three, we have seen this way too many times when people want to make a sports franchise. How can I say it? They turn this into their childhood game, their childhood, play situation. They run this business people wanting to run a sports franchise like a business and think that the things that help them ascend to a level to buy this franchise is the things that will allow them to keep a franchise and win. And they're not mutually inclusive. A lot of times they're exclusive. Just because you were able to use your business acumen to help you buy the team does not mean that the team becomes your new boardroom.
Or
Smart
your toy.
people,
Or
your
your
toy,
toy for
or
that
your toy.
matter.
Smart business people understand that the best thing is to know who's the right people to hire to put in position to execute your vision, but let those smart people do what they do. I've heard different people, and since this is broke, I've heard different people shift and say who's to blame. Listen, no matter what you thought about Russell when you walked in, whatever he did before you has nothing to do with right now. I have a problem with hearing people say, well, some of the blame is on Russell because if he would have won more games, they didn't give Russell a chance to win more games. When you look at the season, when you look at what happened,
put both seasons in totality if you're going to be real about it, because
yeah,
game. Let's be real. He wasn't your first choice. You hired Nathaniel Hackett for the express purposes, and I'm gonna say this, and I think Alex would agree with me if he's still here, that they got Nate Hackett on the express purposes to try to lure Aaron Rodgers to Denver. When that did not happen and he decided to stay in Green Bay, they had to pivot and make a quick, rash decision and get a new quarterback. And they know they needed a quarterback because they had a legendary defense. I won't call it legendary. They had a really good top-tier defense, and they needed to be able to complement that with a decent offense. And they knew they didn't have the quarterback in-house to get that done. So when came with Russell, the idea of Russell being available in trade, they pulled the trigger, right? So not only did you pull a trigger, and based upon how much you gave up, you had to invest. So not only did they get him and they immediately sign him to a long-term deal shortly after that. So he wasn't Nate Hackett's guy. He wasn't the franchise's first guy, but you decided because of how the optics look, you wanted to make it seem like you were being smart in the decisions that you made. So you gave him the contract. You gave him a offensive coach / head coach that was completely and totally over his skis as far as being a head coach is concerned. And you saw it early on. So that particular first season is a complete and utter wash because clearly you didn't put the right coach in position to be able to make Russ, look like, the franchise quarterback that he needs to be. We saw that. And the slight improvements that he made when Hackett was let go let you know that what the problem clearly was.
Yes.
So you pivot. Then you pivot. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't want people to miss what you highlighted. That's a key thing that I think has been forgotten. This was a pivot pickup because the original choice didn't work out the way they thought, and a smoke and mirror situation happened. They thought that, hey, if we get this coach, that's going to lure this quarterback and all will be right. And when the quarterback had a different thought and a different thing that he wanted to do, even though the person that he's close to came there, that shook everything up.
It did.
And now all of a sudden they had to make a pivot. And to Russell's intelligence, you never let a great chaos go to waste. And so because they had to do a quick pivot, it allowed Russell to have greater leverage to create this contract that should go into the Smithsonian right now as one of the greatest contracts ever wrote on a piece of paper.
I mean, ironclad, tighter than that booty is what
tighter than that booty. So yeah, I just didn't want people to miss what you highlighted and what was said about how this really, when we go back to the genesis of it, how this really kicked off and how it all got the So back over to you, because I'm disgusted on all the points that I made. But then when people saying, well, if Russell would have won more games, they wouldn't have been in this situation. And
but
again,
it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that, because that goes back to the point where we got get to Sean Payton, right?
Yeah.
Again, that goes back to my original point about the fact that you should have known and made it clear, made it a mandate for Sean to say, look, we in debt to this person and we want him to be the franchise guy. So you have to do whatever you can possibly do, move heaven and earth to make him work. You and him have to make him work. But in the back of Sean's mind, he never wanted Russell as his quarterback to begin with.
No.
So that, again, you playing both sides against the middle. You smiling and telling the organization, yeah, we're gonna make it work. But in the back of your mind, you're like, I don't want him, I want somebody else. So what I'm going to do is basically, air quotes, sabotage him, from the giddy up, in order to be able to make it plain that the organization, convince the organization to move off of him before the contract even starts, which is unprecedented in its own right. The amount of dead money that they have to incur is unprecedented in its own right. I mean, the highest amount that they've ever had to endure before this was Matt Ryan. That was $40 million.
Yes.
They're in debt for 86.
Yes.
So again, to convince a person, no matter how much money you have, to give up, that level of guaranteed money and never play it down under your new contract is just wild to me. But again, despite all that, again, and what legs do you really have to stand on? Because when you get into the season, they had little bumps in the road early on, but they hit a stride. And they were winning. They beat the Chiefs.
Yep.
And then subsequently after that, because again, the GM and Sean Payton are working in cahoots behind the scenes to say that we got to figure out a way to get out of this contract with Russell Wilson sooner than later. We got to figure out a way to make it so we can move or try to at least shift some of this money some kind of way so it's less punitive for us. So what do we come up with? After winning a ball game, they come to him and tell him or ask him to remove his injury guarantee.
What?
You been asking an NFL player within a league that is 100% injury rate, damn near 99.9% injury rate, to remove an injury guarantee that you as an organization gave him to begin with.
Yes.
Something you gave me, and you want me to give it back to you and risk my injury and my health and my livelihood on the fact that you wanted to make it less punitive for you in a contract dispute or a contract restructuring down the line? No thanks. And then when you tell me, then you say, if we don't do it, not only did you if I don't do it, you're going to bench me for the rest of the season.
Yes.
So, again, Russell standing on business and realizing this was illegal and ultimately having to get NFLPA involved, you're going to tell me that, I guess you can say the idea of him, you getting illegally from the CBA perspective, you can't force him to get rid of his injury guarantee. So you're basically stuck. So to get into a situation where they win a few more games with Russell, despite everything else, which again doesn't make any sense from a perspective of you wanting to bench him because you're winning ball games.
Yeah.
You get to the last couple of games and you bench him anyway for Jarrett Stidham, who again is we don't care what level you hold Russell Wilson at. Jarrett Stidham is not that level.
No,
he's not that level. So
no.
Again, and how you gave me an ultimatum, and you basically told me that I will be benched if I don't comply. And again, that let me know that right then and there that you didn't have any faith in me, and we were going to end up going our separate ways sooner than later.
The NFLPA better make an example out of the Denver Broncos in this situation, because if not, they're teetering on a dangerous path of putting, as Russell said, I didn't want to set the precedent for other players to do what they were asking me to do. And what they were asking me to do is highly illegal. This is like a business going to an employee and saying, hey, we want you to we want you to waive workers' comp and the insurance if you get injured on the job. So we just want you to waive that. And if you don't, we're going to release you from working here.
Yeah, send you home with work without was it leave without pay?
Yeah, leave without pay.
Right.
Matter of fact, we want you to take leave, your own leave, and pay for the leave.
Yes,
and we're not going to pay you at all.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. So I'm saying this to Denver. Denver should be more disappointed at how Sean Payton fleeced you. Sean Payton sold you.
Great point. Don't skip past that, because that is what I'm trying to drive home here.
Yeah.
That is exactly what I'm trying to drive home here. Sean Payton sold you a bill of goods when he should have been capitulating to the idea if you wanted Russell Wilson as your quarterback. When he had in his mind, when the moment he walked in the door, that I got to get this guy out of here. That's how I feel about it.
Yes. He sold you something that you, Denver, you sat down at the table, you grabbed your knife, you grabbed your fork, you grabbed your napkin, and you ate and got full off of.
You did.
Right? Now here, we've seen before when a coach walks in to a quarterback, especially who's not their guy. Right? We're not saying that. And I've heard it said, hey, if you didn't like Russell and you didn't like what he was doing and you wanted to bench him, that is your right. But at the timing of when you wanted to bench him, nobody's saying that when Russell made no sense. Nobody was saying when Russell wasn't playing well that you don't have, nobody's arguing that, oh, you can't bench Russell. Nobody's saying that. You have every right. What went through and when didn't make any sense. And that's why going back to Denver and looking at Denver and saying, wait a minute, you might not have had certain things, but this contract was signed. This contract was done. This contract had signatures on it. You inherit that. So now it is, how can we get to yes? Right? Now you have a coach coming in. Hey, listen, we on the hook. We're on the hook for something that if we go a certain route, will put us in place that we will have the most dead cap money in history. And two people don't equal to one. Two people. We're talking about Matt Ryan. I can't remember the other person, but both of their contracts together don't equal to what they're on the hook.
It does not.
With Russell Wilson. And what you gave up, I want to read this off to people so you really understand what happened and what they're giving up. So Denver, this is the full roundup of the trade. Broncos got Russell Wilson and a 2022 fourth round pick. I can't even pronounce his name, not even going to try. The Seahawks got Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, the 2022 first round pick, who was Charles Cross, the 2022 second round pick, who was Boy Mafi, the 2022 fifth round pick, who was Tyreek Smith, the 2023 number 5 overall pick, who was Devin Witherspoon, and the 2023 number 37 overall pick, who was Derek Hall.
Wow.
Up until this point, the most swindling pick was Jimmy Johnson trading Herschel Walker.
Yep.
Up until this point.
That superseded that.
This has superseded it. Now, you got some Hall of Famers out of that pick. So we don't know if these people,
it may or may not pan out to be Hall of Famers.
May not, but when you look at the Hall, when you look at how Seattle, after they hung up and confirmed it, started skipping down the road, how they smiled, and they probably looked around at each other and said, dang, no damn way. I cannot believe
it is my birthday.
Fax that over right now before they figure out what just happened.
Exactly.
Right? What they got. And again, this goes back to what you said about having to pivot because their original plan got shifted, put Russell in a great position to have leverage. So with that and having that, what they got and what they received, but then on top of that, to walk in and do these things to Russell and to say that you have a coach, you have a leader of your organization that is supposed to be on the field director, to now go up and execute your direction, because there's no way possible that Sean was moving on Russell and doing these things to emotionally trigger Russell to get him to fire back off, so they can say conduct detrimental to the team, so they can void themselves out of the contract.
Yeah, and that's the next point I want to highlight, because again, not only did you go into the situation knowing in the back of your mind that you didn't want Russell to be a starting quarterback going forward, you did everything in your power, shady manner, to try to get rid of Russell in a manner where it wouldn't be punitive to the team. Because I'm sure George Payton, who was a GM, told you, look, we're going to be on the hook for this amount of money if we let him go. He does not modify it. So we started with the injury guarantee. That didn't work. Now we're going to go with the idea of trying to get him to basically do something that's out of his character, to make it seem like we can utilize a clause in his contract that he's, if he's ever suspended, he could be, basically voiding of his contract is fully guarantees because he was suspended and did something that was negative and put the organization in a negative light. So you gave him an ultimatum, you threatened to bench him, and then you get to the point where you snap off him and try to embarrass him publicly on national TV to get him to snap back at you so you could suspend him, thus giving him reasoning why you could A, suspend him, and B, void his contract. Makes it seem like to me that you never, ever, ever wanted to deal with this man in any facet. And again, that goes back to the organization as an indictment on them, because you should have told Sean unequivocally that your job is based upon your job, and your ability to be here long term is based upon
making it work.
Oh, you and Russell making it work and you being here long term together. If that's not what you want, and that's not what you want to sign up for, you don't need to take the job, sir. No. So the fact that they didn't do that, or they let Sean snake by and didn't, capitulate to that, that's an indictment on them.
Guilty.
And Sean is really, really ridiculously shady for coming in and basically wanting to get rid of him and find somebody else based upon the fact that of who he was and how he didn't agree with Russell's ability to play quarterback.
And the fact that Russell won these games,
despite that,
because here's the thing: a lot of people can, if Russell would have won more games, Russell was in a position that he couldn't do right. When we study,
do you realize that? Go ahead. I'm going to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, when we study this situation, Russell was put in a lose-lose situation.
That he was.
Right? Because I can hear this conversation. I'm gonna say it like this. I can hear this conversation. Well, Russell, we went to Russell. I went to Russell. Russell's not going to rescind his injury clause. How can we get out of this? I got it, guys. I know one thing that all players fall victim to. What is that, Sean? They fall victim to being emotional. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to berate, I'm going to aggravate, I'm going to be a coach and demean him. And what that's going to do is get him to fire back off. And the plan we can execute is to say conduct detrimental to the team. Oh, that sounds amazing. You think it'll work, Sean? I know it will. I know it will work.
And
I'm going to go and do it.
Not taking the bait.
Russell was smarter than that. Russell was smarter and smart enough. I remember when RC said, you got the right one. And at the time, it was looked at as differently than this.
But now we really fully understand that you got the right one, because he knows better than you. And he's just as savvy as a businessman that you are.
And he said,
those little tricks are not going to work on him.
You're not going to get me to act out of character
right,
and end up having me lose my money.
Right.
I'm in the position of power right now. All the cards are in my hand. And if only thing that I don't have to do, is fire back off you, I'm going to make you look bad. Because we said this on the show. You have never seen a coach do what they did, do what he did to a franchise quarterback or the face of your organization as quarterback. Like you said, you never saw this happen with Drew Brees.
Would have never did it to Drew Brees.
He would have never did, but that's because Drew Brees is his guy.
Exactly.
Russell wasn't his guy. He never was Russell's guy. He didn't want. That's why now all this chirping and this lambosting,
shadiness they went through is just disgusting.
Oh, when we asked the question, why is he acting like that? Oh, it's a new day, and he's all these things, and you just need to stop. I think you said this. You need to stop worrying about being basically volunteering and being out here.
Presidential,
being presidential. You need to focus on being here and all that. All that was a setup.
Yeah, that all it was. It was a smear
all
campaign.
That was a setup.
It was a political smear campaign in the NFL. That's what it boils down to.
Yes.
That's what it boils down to. So I think we clear on the idea that Sean Payton is completely utterly shady. And the Denver Broncos need to be able to hold themselves accountable as well for allowing all this to go on.
Yep.
I understand it's your new ownership group and the GM. Listen, he feel like he is the puppet master of this whole entire thing to me. Yep. But what's ironic to me though is I think I could be wrong on this, but if I almost want to say that he didn't want to give him Russell the contract in the first place. Maybe he did, he wasn't. But maybe it was the old regime that gave him the contract before the new regime came in. But regardless, you got to deal with what you got to deal with in order to be able to move forward amicably, and they didn't do that. So
true.
I don't have no remorse for them when it comes down to this cap situation they're already being. I don't. And I say all that to say, because if you look at it from this perspective, like I said, Russell signed a $245 million contract. $124 million of that was fully guaranteed. They're on the hook for him right now by cutting him in this particular year coming up, $85 million in the hole for dead money. And they're now a negative $49 million in cap savings on top of the $20 million they're already in the hole. So being that you basically it's almost $70 million in the hole at this point before you even start your free agency period.
Before you start.
Good luck digging out of that hole. Good luck. But again, just the bid you made, lie in it. It's the bid you made, you got to lie in it. So you gave him a contract, you didn't honor it. And, for people to, always want to say that, players should honor their contracts and they should, have some honor system, has some, I guess you can say, admiration for the team that gave you this deal and allowed you to make all this money. This is the flip side.
Yep.
This is the flip side. Because again, you want me to be honorable, but you're not honorable with me in the same breath. If we both gonna be honorable and you move forward amicably, that's one thing. But if you're gonna be shady on your side, then damn it, I'm not gonna give you any room to screw me over any further. And I'm gonna make sure I get everything I got coming to me.
Yes.
And Russell deserves every bit of dollars he got coming to him. And whoever he plays for next year, sign for the league minimum and make Denver pay all that money back until 100%. Until it's done. But again, here's the aftermath. Like I said, Russell wrote a nice glowing letter to thank the organization that he, was involved with, from the lunch ladies to the linesmen. There's a lot of people he thanked. But who I did realize that he didn't thank was Sean Payton, and he shouldn't have.
No.
You shouldn't have to thank the GM or Sean Payton for basically doing you this level of dirty, being actually going back to my point about smear campaigning you and getting rid of you before you even played it down in that contract.
Right.
Terrible and shady, man. Terrible and shady.